Hello, and thank you for joining us on this presentation of human trafficking, awareness and action. The objectives for our presentation today include defining human trafficking and identifying victims of human trafficking. Secondly, we're going to report on the global, national, and regional statistics related to this public health issue and why it is an underreported issue. We're going to discuss the role of you, the community, in helping to identify victims of human trafficking and also identify how you can help assist those victims of human trafficking. Our presentation today, my name is Renee Cantwell. I'm an associate professor at Rutgers University School of Nursing in Camden, and my colleague Jeanann Sousou Coppola is a clinical assistant professor also at the School of Nursing, Rutgers University, Camden. So what is human trafficking? You may have thought that slavery ended in the 1800s. In fact, however, slavery is occurring in greater numbers and in more places in the world than it ever has. It is essentially a form of modern day slavery. It is also the fastest growing international crime. And human trafficking, to be actually defined as human trafficking, has to involve the use of force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of either forced labor or sexual exploitation. As an example, I will use prostitution. Some people may intentionally go into the work of prostitution and desire to do that kind of work. However, they're willingly doing this. However, when someone is forced to prostitute by either fraud, force, or coercion, then we determine that as human trafficking. Human trafficking is also not the same as smuggling. And an example I can provide for that is if someone from Guatemala, for example, wants to enter the United States illegally, they can pay someone to smuggle them across the border. That is not the same as human trafficking because this person willingly wants to be smuggled across the border. In many cases, however, human trafficking does involve movement of someone, again, if it's against their will, then that's a different story. For example, kids can be trafficked from their homes. Parents can traffic their own children. And this is human trafficking. And if gangs are trafficking young individuals, they may often move them from place to place. For example, motels and hotels are often used for prostitution by victims of human trafficking, and they will get moved to different motels so that the trafficking can be avoided. The detection of this crime can be avoided. Why does it happen? We often ask, why are people being trafficked? Well, it all has to do with money. In fact, it's a $150 billion crime. This is how much they make annually. It's the second most profitable crime after drug trafficking. And why is that? Because drugs and guns are sold once. The perpetrators have to go back out once those guns and drugs are sold and repurchase them again. However, a victim of trafficking, a person, can be sold over and over and over again. So the amount of money that can be made from people is much, much greater than can be made with drugs and guns. The global statistics for trafficking given to us by the International Labor Organization estimates that on any given day, there are approximately 25 million victims that are being trafficked. 75% of them are women and children. 81% are involved into forced labor, and about 19% involve sexual exploitation. This is on a global level. Nationally, however, we have a very different statistic. This next slide gives us the statistics on national trafficking, where we have 30% labor trafficking and over 80% of sexual trafficking. And this data is from 2017. 7,000 or more were sex trafficked, about 2,000 were labor trafficked, 500 or more were both, and over 800 were unspecified. And that is a low number. I want you to keep in mind, because human trafficking is a crime, it is very clandestine. So these data, the data that are reported, we can assume very much so that they are underreported statistics. There are several cases close to home in New Jersey. They involve a variety of prostitution against their will. There's a 23-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 19-year-old. And thankfully, all of these perpetrators were caught and are being charged with trafficking. As you can see on this slide, the red areas are where the highest number of victims of human trafficking are found. And if you look at the right side of the screen, you can see all the way from Florida all the way up to the northeast corridor of the United States, there are huge splotches of red. And also on the west coast of California all the way up to the northwest coast, very high numbers of trafficked victims. And on the next slide, you can see why. Why is that incidence so high in New Jersey? We have a very dense population in New Jersey. Also, we are right along that I-95 corridor, which makes taking a victim and then driving down I-95 along any one of these spots very simple and easy. We also have some industries that use trafficked individuals. For example, prostitution in the casinos and in the farming areas of New Jersey. We could have labor trafficking going on. Again, I-95 is easy access on and off to truck stops, airports, seaports, and terminals. And the large venue events, such as what we had in Philadelphia for the drafting of the NFL and also the Super Bowl in northern Jersey, were prime grounds for trafficking rings to practice. Other statistics that we have for New Jersey are even more helpful. For example, there are many coalitions that are founded in New Jersey to help victims, and one of them is called Avanzar. And this program has documented since 2014 at least 650 cases of human trafficking. Over 80% of them are U.S. citizens. And that might be surprising to you, because I think many times we get the perspective from television and commercials and things like that, that these people that are trafficked are from Eastern Europe or third world countries. But they're not. It's over 80% of the victims are U.S. citizens, and nearly 90% of them are sex trafficked survivors. Very few are labor trafficked individuals. And what was shocking to me was the data that they gleaned from these survivors. Their age range was from 9 years of age to up to 75 years old. This organization is a statewide program, but again, other programs operate around the state. But just to show you how prevalent the problem of human trafficking is in New Jersey, this small little group of Avanzar, Dream Free program has these frightening statistics. Sadly, many of the survivors of human trafficking, their perpetrators do not get indicted. As you can see, from 2005 to 2018 to 2018, only 102 indictments were handed down in the entire state of New Jersey, despite the large numbers of victims. And that's because it is very difficult to actually prove that trafficking has occurred. And the reason why is that it's underreported. And in the next slide, you can see the reasons for this underreporting. Victims may not always cooperate, even if the victims are found and they are reported to have been trafficked. They don't cooperate with the law because they fear further trauma and retaliation by those same perpetrators. Also, victims' helpers may not alert law enforcement because of the fear that if they report the problem, the victims will also be harmed not only by the perpetrators, but by the criminal justice process, which is a very real thing. They also fear deportation if they are in this country illegally. So it's very difficult, even when a victim is found, it's very difficult to get the perpetrators indicted. This is a video called Stop This Traffic, which was taken in Western Michigan, and it is a capsule of what is happening around the whole country. There's no sound on my end, Jeanann.
About confidence. Anything she puts her mind to, she could achieve. We actually have his story. If you could read that out loud to us.
Yes, Marcus. I grew up really close to my parents. Adriana. I grew up with my brother and sister.
Amy. I remember watching the Olympics on TV when I was 5 and being totally in awe of the sprinters.
I was the middle child and easily the quietest.
I felt like no one ever saw me or cared.
Dad was too drunk to keep a job, and he never even saw me unless I was in his way.
Mom worked 2 jobs to make sure we had food for every meal, so she was never here to know when he would hit us.
One day when I went to the mall, like I like to do to be out of the house, a man came up to me and told me I was beautiful and asked me on a date.
On our first date, he drove me around in his car and said we could eat whatever I wanted.
Every time we were together, he bought me something new.
Tom really cared about me, and Tom really made me feel special.
I was in love with him.
After only going out for 3 weeks, Tom offered me a way out of my home, asked me to move in with him. So when he asked me to have sex with him, I did.
He would put his hand over my face until I could breathe.
Tom had friends over pretty regularly, and I could tell that some of his friends were into me.
So I kept my door locked and hoped that no one would bother me. After a few nights of crashing there, he said that I still owed him for letting me stay at his place.
He said he had a friend who wanted to spend an hour with me. He told me I might have to do some stuff, but not to worry about it. Not a big deal.
When I didn't want to, he slapped me and said no one ever cared about me like he did.
But I didn't know what else to do because I needed a place to stay.
His friends forced themselves on me and took turns while he watched.
One by one, they'd come down to the basement, telling me how pretty I am.
When they were on top of me, I just closed my eyes and pretend I was running.
I'm exhausted and I don't know what to do.
My name is Adriana, 16 years old.
My name is Marcus. I'm 14 years old. My name is Amy. I'm 12 years old.
I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
And I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
That was very different than what I thought. Especially because, like, being a girl and imagining, like, if that was me, like, that's, I don't even know. I can't even imagine what that would be like. She deserves to be a kid, just like what she is in this picture.
It being so close to home is something that makes me want to jump out of this chair.
I wouldn't think that Grand Rapids is a place where anything like this would ever happen.
Because you don't want it to happen to anybody, and you really don't want it to happen to people that live where you live.
Thank you for sharing her story with us. I'd like to show you something if you wouldn't mind taking her picture and following me to the gym. Oh, wow.
I expected something certainly a lot smaller.
Bar graph and numbers, and but these are actual people. I don't know. In like my world, in my bubble or whatever, we don't talk about this. It's not something we think about.
You know, what we see is only on the surface.
I mean, looking at this, sex trafficking doesn't have any discrimination, that's for sure. Ages, genders, can affect anybody. It hits you right in your heart, your gut, your stomach. It's like, wow. Now it's like I feel like I have this weight of responsibility to see how I can help.
Changes through greater awareness and making people realize that this does happen here and will continue to happen until we decide to make it stop.
So, as you can see from that video, which was quite sobering, these high school students in Michigan had no idea that this was happening in their community. And I think many of us, and until I got involved with learning more about human trafficking, I had no idea how much of it was happening in New Jersey. So this is why Jeanann and I are so passionate in talking about this subject. We need the whole community to help stop this terrible crime. Again, these perpetrators, not surprisingly, look for people that they can use. They look for people who are vulnerable and are desperate for attention or affection. The techniques are many, but one of the techniques they use, as you can see on this slide, are they pretend that they're agents looking for beautiful girls to model for them. And these are, of course, not really agents looking for models, but actually looking for girls who are beautiful who can be trafficked. And these are some examples on this slide. And as I mentioned, what makes an individual vulnerable to sex trafficking? Being young, gullible, and impressionable is absolutely a top. Any children or young adults or who've been abused sexually in the past life, foster children, children who are looking for a home, someone to care about them. Also, teenagers who have problems at home, and I'm sure that's many of them, but some of them just want to leave and run away, and they are prime individuals for trafficking. Those who are homeless, living on the streets, as in the video you saw, some of those girls had nowhere to go, and these guys pick them up and take care of them, pretend they're going to take care of them, and then they become trafficked. Having a disability or some vulnerability in their physical looks or mentally challenged, those who are socially isolated, those who are LGBT, and those who are on drugs and need money to buy more drugs. Well, this is an easy way to do it, isn't it? They're everywhere. They look for these traffickers, look for their victims everywhere. Public places such as the mall is a really big place for them to look for girls in groups and tempt them by, as I said, being an agent, looking for girls to be in their movies or to model. Bus stations where kids hang out because they have nowhere to sleep, libraries, schools, houses of worship, youth groups, and especially online. And Jeanann will talk to you more about how this is happening in the online atmosphere.
Thank you, Renee. Traffickers aim to identify their vulnerable populations. They look for signs, as discussed in the previous slides, and take advantage of them. For example, an adolescent who has a history of abuse in the home or feels socially isolated because of a disability can be taken advantage of by a trafficker. The trafficker begins to boyfriend them as they identify those signs of family breakdown. They begin to show care, to show compassion. They pretend that they're going to be the ones to save them from their current situation, and this victim falls prey to this manipulation. The trafficker offers gifts to win them over, offers love, offers them a place to stay, shelter, something that the victim may not feel they have, or received from their family or even from their friends. The trafficker showers them with this pretend love and affection and care that then the trafficker becomes the victim becomes more alienated from their family and friends. And it's as if the victim has been saved from the abuse experienced by her family or her friends. This is just a list of red flags that are identified not only in the healthcare setting, but just in any setting. People who are reluctant to speak to you, who seem exhausted, who once had energy, who seem as if they've been dominated or controlled, or seem as if they're in a dominating or controlling relationship with someone, who have fear or are fearful, who maybe work long hours, in the example of the human traffickers, the workers in the fields that Renee discussed when she discussed the slide on the Northeast Corridor in New Jersey. They may also have feelings of alienation from family and friends. They receive plenty of gifts from an older age boyfriend, and they also exhibit signs of abuse. The victim is someone that is someone of human trafficking or even sex trafficking. This victim enters a vicious cycle of both psychological and emotional distress. There's also spiritual, physical, as well as social abuse. Feelings of low self-esteem and depression and trust issues become apparent in this person. They also exhibit self-blame and anger. Spiritually, they feel hopeless and they lack faith. The physical repercussions are many and at times concealed by the victim, so not to expose that they are victims of human trafficking. They can have bruising, sexually transmitted infections. They may exhibit gastrointestinal issues that have no etiology, that can't be explained. And abuse becomes an issue with substance and prescriptions. Abuse with medications and drugs become very apparent among the victims. And from that, they feel socially isolated, and the financial impact can also then lead to homelessness, where they have nowhere to go and they have no one to turn to. And sometimes they feel they can't trust anybody anymore because they've been victims of trafficking. So again, the victims are sought anywhere. Traffickers can seek them out from any location. Pedophilia is a problem in this country, and it's been a problem for a very long time. Pedophiles can also be labeled under that umbrella of sex trafficking. Pedophilia is technically a psychological or psychiatric disorder in which an adult or an older person or an older adolescent, for that matter, experiences a primary or exclusive sexual attraction to a prepubescent child. Red flags to look for are these traffickers tend to spend more time with children than they do with adults. They become more interested in the same things that children like. For example, games, dolls, game apps. They show and express interest with the child, and the child then feels more connected with that adult or older adolescent. Pedophiles tend to look for ways to be alone with the child. And examples can include taking them out for a walk, taking them to the store to buy something. They tend to exhibit unusual affection and care for a child who's not of their own. The dark web is actually a very scary place. The dark web is a subset of the deep web, which is intentionally hidden from the normal internet. It requires a specific browser to access. No one really knows the size of the dark web, but most estimates put it about 5% of the total internet is technically the dark web, or labeled as the dark web. Traffickers learn the tricks of the trade through grooming, and that can be found in the dark web. And this information on grooming is the process that traffickers use to control and manipulate someone into human trafficking or sex trafficking. And although the specific actions are different, traffickers usually follow the same steps, from gaining the victim's trust, to providing the victim's needs, to isolating the victim from other people, and then forcing them into a trafficking situation where they can't get out of it. They feel alone. They feel secluded. Predators and traffickers can also learn about grooming through chat rooms, and they may also use chat rooms to lure their victims. The dark web has predators who troll various apps and video games to target potential child victims. The following men were caught by an undercover policeman who were pretending to be teenagers. One of these men found a 7-year-old victim in a chat room and wanted to have sex with him. The goal of the predator, or the perpetrators, is to get the child out of the house. When the child is able to leave their home, the men, or the perpetrators, the predators, have that opportunity to keep them by chaining them or even killing them if the victim tries to escape from their hold. New Jersey police have orchestrated several sting operations, one of which was called Open House, in which they targeted about 60 potential predators online over 3 weekends. Other popular apps that you and I know of, such as Keep, TikTok, and other popular children's games, such as Fortnite and Minecraft, have also had potential predators lurking the chat rooms, disguised as other older adolescents. And of course, vulnerable children are the targets. And this is just a laundry list of other popular apps that predators use to lure their victims, some of which may be familiar to you and me, and some of which we might use on a daily basis. Whisper is another app that uses pictures with messages inscripted over them, and this app encourages the user to post a picture of themselves with a deep, dark, anonymous secret. Predators gravitate towards the pictures and messages of vulnerable victims and then begin to message them from there, and that's one of the ways in which these perpetrators lure their victims. Free texting is another form of that predators use to lure their victims. Free texting, such as Text Free, Kik, Text Plus, and WhatsApp, which WhatsApp is a very common app actually that I have on my phone. It's another form of communication that allows the predators to communicate with their victims without others knowing about it or parents being really able to block them. This is a popular method that's used by teens to hide any chats and sexting, as it's an app that parents may not be aware of or even have control over on their phones. And the black market. There is also the black market reload, which is kind of an online eBay for human traffickers, perpetrators, predators, in which products, services, as well as human victims can be bought, sold, and exchanged on the dark web. Human traffickers use the site, and sites very similar to this, it's not the only one out there, to purchase and exchange their trafficked victims. Once the victim is in the possession of the human trafficker, and the trafficker may want to earn more income or exchange them for another victim, they exploit them here, and this is one of the places they would exploit that. Predators can go to this platform to buy victims or to exchange victims with other predators. And if they're looking for a certain age, gender, race, they can find their victims here. The social media landscape, the dark net, or the deep web, is literally a grocery store for predators. And this is a laundry list of places that predators can go and seek out their victims. The internet and dark web also have random websites. Most websites are anonymous, so you don't know who's on the other side, but mostly all can be described as dangerous websites that we might think are safe. The New Jersey Coalition Against Human Trafficking is a coalition that Renee and I are a part of and have been a part of for about a year. And it's a not-for-profit coalition that was formed in 2011. This mission is the mission of this coalition, this organization, is to unite New Jersey communities and abolish human trafficking in the state of New Jersey and hopefully across the country. Its members are currently representative of over 180 organizations in this state, and its coalition helped to pass key legislation in 2013, the New Jersey Human Trafficking Prevention and Protection and Treatment Act, and this became a law in 2016. This is a volunteer-run coalition with about 20 committees. Some of the committees are the Education Committee, the Healthcare Committee, which Renee and I are a part of, as well as the Awareness Committee. A few of the initiatives that the New Jersey Coalition offers are speakers bureaus, in which former victims of human trafficking attend venues and talks to speak about their experience against human trafficking, as well as educate their public about this major public health issue. Student awareness activities and intern programs. This coalition offers an intensive 3-week volunteer internship program for college undergrads during winter break that coincide with Human Trafficking Prevention Month, which is in January. This coalition also has survivor-informed actions, such as the Survivor Consultant for Victims. And these are victims who are recovering from being trafficked and connect with current victims in order to help them. There's also the Survivor-run SOAP outreach program, the SOAP, which stands for Save Our Adolescents from Prostitution. The coalition and SOAP trains and sends volunteers to hotels and motels to help stop child trafficking. Since 2014, the coalition has partnered with several survivors of human trafficking to conduct outreaches to over 800 hotels and motels in the New Jersey state. The mission of this program is to provide awareness and tools to support the tourism industry, the hotel industry, the hospitality industry, and help prevent sexual exploitation of children. And you can see from this picture, these are mini soap bars that have a sticker on them, and the sticker has the following information. We call it soap labels. If you're forced to do anything you don't want to do, have you been threatened if you try to leave? Have you witnessed young girls being prostituted? If so, please call this number. It's the New Jersey Human Trafficking Hotline, or if they're able to, text HELP, be free, to 233-733. Another initiative that the coalition has is called Locker Slam, and Locker Slam is a student awareness program that's held once a year, usually in January, which is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. Local high schools that wish to volunteer, and the intention of this program is designed to bring awareness of human trafficking among teachers and students. Magnets and postcards are handed out and scattered all across the school campus, and this past January alone, over 60 New Jersey high schools participated in this initiative in bringing about awareness to human trafficking. So what can you do to help? Put the following phone number in your phone. If you suspect an individual is a victim of human trafficking, or if you think they might be a victim of human trafficking, call the hotline, 888-373-7888. Another thing you can do is plan to buy fair trade when possible to stop the supply of slave-made or trafficker-made goods. Sign up for newsletters on the NewJerseyHumanTrafficking.org website, and connect to the New Jersey Human Trafficking Coalition on Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. Thank you for listening to our presentation.